Hey everyone, Brenton Lengel here. So the thing is that as a lot of you know, I was extremely active in Occupy Wall Street.
There's a lot of people out here who are very angry. There's a lot of dumb kids who are going to say a lot of dumb things to you guys because they're pissed off, because they cannot articulate how angry they are. They cannot articulate the problems with the system. That does not mean these problems are not here. That does not mean that what we're dealing with is something that is worth protecting.
And, you know, this was around 2011. I just started identifying as an anarchist, and, you know, I had originally dismissed Occupy as, you know, just yet another socialist protest. I was like, yeah, oh, you know, hey, more socialists marching in the street. They're not angry enough yet. I'll come back later. But then it stuck, and I started to see, like, pictures of my friends down there. And then I started seeing pictures of my friends getting arrested. And I was suddenly like, whoa, okay, this is a lot more than what I thought it was. And went down there with my black and red class warfare bring it sign that got featured on CNN. And proceeded to kind of throw myself headfirst into the movement for a number of reasons. Now, why am I bringing this up now? Well, because one, you know, Occupy was almost a decade ago, but I have a lot of movement experience, both as a journalist and as a member of these movements. And two, this is part of my experience what is like very timely to what is going on right now. Now, namely, this has to do specifically with American Johnson, the YouTube channel Non-Compete, and a feud and lawsuit he's currently involved in with Trevor Noah of The Daily Show, the guy who took over The Daily Show from Jon Stewart. Now, normally I wouldn't weigh in on something like this because, you know, it seems like it's just between two parties, but it's actually much bigger than that. And this kind of speaks to a lot of things that those of us without movement experience, who still, you know, are kind of a lefty, kind of a socialist, running around in radical circles, can really benefit from. Because the thing is that on the left, there is a very big distinction between a leftist that actually does something and leftists that are purely entertainers. And, you know, Trevor Noah running The Daily Show, you know, liberals love him. And liberals loved Jon Stewart before him. And in fact, like, you know, I don't know, some of you, YouTube skews young, so some of you may be Zoomers and may not remember, like, the heyday of The Daily Show. Like, it got so big, like, there were movies. The movie Man of the Year, starring Robin Williams, was basically some screenwriter got it into their head with, like, oh, Jon Stewart's amazing. What if Jon Stewart got to be president? And then wrote sort of a weird political thriller around that. That eventually became a movie starring Robin Williams. But, you know, a lot of the ways that the left in the country, the Democratic Party, expresses their power and gets people interested is via entertainment. You know, I don't buy into the myth that of like the left-wing media. There really is almost no left-wing media. Like, I mean, maybe you got a case with like Democracy Now! As a left-wing source, but other than that, you know, everything is either like centrist or far-right, you know. So you've got CNN and MSNBC, and you only have to look at how they reacted to Bernie Sanders to realize that the far-left MSNBC is not actually far left, is barely left at all, to tell you the truth. And the same thing with, you know, CNN, and then Fox, of course, is more or less just a propaganda outlet for the Republicans, and then you go even further to like OAN and some of these other like very far right networks. So really, media in the country like is very much controlled by people who have a lot invested in the system and want to see that system continue. But what they're doing is that they cater to a wide variety of audiences. And in this case, you know, you've got Trevor Noah, who has a lot of money and power, and he is catering very much to liberals and, you know, and the left. Though, of course, you know, he does stuff like call, what was it, vegan ISIS. He called Antifa vegan ISIS. You know, and this lawsuit that's currently going on with American Johnson really brought me back to a it brought me back to something that I remembered. It struck a chord with something that I remembered from my time with Occupy. Now, what's going on at the moment is Trevor Noah is allegedly copyright trolling, where American Johnson put out a video where he was critical of a stand-up routine that Trevor Noah did that made light of the murders of like South African South African miners who were killed in a strike in a standoff with government troops, and like actually went and like excused firing tear gas at them and excused using live rounds on these striking miners. Now, if you have any knowledge of like the history of militant labor, this is not a new thing. This happens a lot. And the fact that he, you know, I watched the clip, and the clip is disgusting. And I will be linking the Vimeo clip in the description of this video, just so you guys can watch it if you want to. I will not put it into this video, because if I do, Trevor Noah will try and get this taken down. But, you know, it's very important that in solidarity, we support other anarchist creators. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to put out this video. But there's a whole nother reason behind it, too, because we had a similar, not the same, but a similar situation with Trevor Noah's predecessor, Jon Stewart. So Occupy, you know, lasted a good couple of years. I remember the exact day that it personally died for me, where I was like, okay, that's it, Occupy is over, was when one of the organizers, who I will not name, but you could find pretty easily if you wanted to, she basically went light fascist, sort of dark web, or dark enlightenment, and suggested that Barack Obama should appoint like the Google CEO as like the CEO of America. And, you know, that I was just like, okay, everything that we believed and everything that we worked on, you know, there was a lot that couldn't kill it, but you advancing that, you killed it. At least for me, at least in my head. But that's something beside the point. The thing was that a lot of stuff went on at Occupy. A lot of crazy stuff, a lot of amazing stuff, a lot of silly stuff, and a lot of dangerous stuff. And one of the things that went on at Occupy was, I would say at the 6-month anniversary of Occupy, what happened was that there a young woman who was active in the SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, which kind of like on the more conservative end of like of the people who were participating in Occupy. You know, they're socialists, but they're very, you know, the SDS, they're not radical. You know, not compared to like the anarchists and the Marxists and, you know, but, you know, they were still comrades because we all were there together. And Cecily was a member of that organization, and also she kind of became the focal point because at the 6-month anniversary of Occupy, she went out. It was over St. Patrick's Day. And what wound up happening was that the park, while she was in the park on St. Patrick's Day, dropping off to talk to a friend or something, the NYPD picked that moment to raid the park. And a police officer came up behind her and, according to Cecily, grabbed her breast. And she freaked out, not knowing it was a cop, and boom, elbowed him in the eye. And, you know, he got a little shiner under the eye, but Cecily got the crap kicked out of her. And she woke up in a hospital, you know, handcuffed to a bed, and was told that she had assaulted a police officer. And now The penalty for assaulting a police officer and being convicted is 1 to 7 years in federal prison. And this became huge because a lot of Occupy trials went on with people who got arrested. Very few of them actually went to trial. Like, and those that did go to trial, everybody won. Like, I was arrested with Occupy. In fact, I'll put up a picture of it when I do this. But like, if you went to trial with Occupy, you 100% won your case. And we had won every case that we had, and other cases had been dismissed or thrown out. But Cecily's case, it seemed like this was like, they were like, okay, we are going to teach her a lesson. And we're going to teach everyone a lesson to don't ever do this again. So what they wound up doing was they put her on trial, and it became very clear very early that they were intent on convicting her on this felony. The felony of, you know, accidentally bumping a police officer and giving him like a slight black eye. There was no damage to this guy. It was a completely understandable situation, but, you know, the people being who they are and, you know, having lost every other case, they were like, you know, okay, we're really going to get this woman. And it was a terrible situation because, you know, the judge in that time had been referred to as, quote, a prosecutor in a robe. Like, I remember watching it, I was like, Jesus, is this guy like the freaking villain from like an 80s movie or something? The level of deference he showed the prosecution versus the defense was frankly disgusting, in my opinion. But anyway, to go through all of this was that a lot of us got involved to try, because we knew Cecily, and we did not want to see a friend, a comrade, regardless of, you know, whatever political disagreements that we might have with her, sit in prison for 7 years for, you know, really what was at most likely a mistake and at worst a very natural reaction to being attacked from behind by you know, a freaking stormtrooper. So we all got together and did our best to keep the media on that story of Cecily and to keep people like focused on it. And in fact, like, you know, and we worked really hard. We got people, big celebrities like, you know, Chris Hedges, who was really, really big at the time, to write articles in support of her. And one of the things that the people who were sort of handling the media end of this trial to make sure that this kept in, this media was really important. Because, spoiler, Cecily was actually convicted. Luckily, though, there was an unprecedented letter writing campaign that we had with a bunch of people writing in thousands and thousands of letters saying, don't put this girl in prison. What the hell is wrong with you? She didn't do anything wrong. And so in the end, while she was convicted of a felony, which is awful, she wound up only getting 90 days instead of 7 years. So, you know, but all in all, the media attention and the public attention on this trial was very important, because if this had gone away, they would have just run with it. And I guarantee you that she would have been in prison for at least a couple years, if not the full 7. And then, like, the head of the police union was really big on this and was basically like, maximum penalty for anyone who assaults a NYPD police officer. I don't care about the circumstances, you know? So how does this come in? Well, one of the people that we had working on this, and they managed to get in touch with The Daily Show. And, you know, I was a big fan of The Daily Show at the time. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. You know, we were emailing, and we all got super excited because we found out that they had responded and that they would do a story on it. And we're like, oh, this is absolutely perfect because, you know, they're famously kind of lefty leaning. They're really funny. This is obviously, you know, police overreach and a young girl who might be threatened to be locked up for 7 years. And the joke, first of all, they didn't do a story on it. They did one joke. And the joke was only one person has gone to jail for messing around, like for crashing our economy in 2008. And that was this person who confessed. And only one person has gone to jail for, you know, Occupy protesting. And, oh, what was it? Something like, holding a sign without a license. And Jon Stewart looks at his notes and goes, "Oh no, assaulting a police officer. Yeah, you can't do that." He 100% sided with the police without really knowing anything or even caring about what had gone on. He threw Cecily under the bus, and he nearly got a girl. Like, you got to think, because the media being as important. Imagine if people had not been as engaged as they were, and if the other aspects of the jail support that we were doing was not, as successful. If Jon Stewart had been the final word on that, Cecily would have gone to prison. And the thing is, the only reason they even brought it up was that we had specifically reached out to them and done everything we could to get their attention, to get them to pay attention, to try to keep our friend out of jail for, a simple mistake. And that was the day that I learned that lefty comedians are not our friends. Because, the thing is that there are people who are interested in, I got involved with Occupy Wall Street, not because even that I necessarily wanted to, but it was more, oh my God, this is going on. I'm sitting here in my apartment in New York City, I have to do something. I have to get down there, or I'm not going to be able to face myself in the mirror, from day to day. And I think a lot of activists are like that. But there's also other people that see the power and the fervor and the excitement of a movement and the new ideas that come out of the left. And they see it as a stepping stone for their career. And this is not just Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah. In fact, and I actually really like him, but John Oliver has done the same thing. Now, what he wound up doing was on his program, he did a thing where, to point out the problems with, with debt that people were getting into, especially distressed medical debt that people couldn't pay. He did a whole thing where he did a debt buyback, where he was able to buy a huge amount of debt for pennies on the dollar and then forgive that debt and let those people off the hook for their unpaid medical bills that he had purchased. Because this is a thing that happens. And that was a good story, and I'm glad he did that. But do you know who did that before him that he gave absolutely no credit to? Was freaking Occupy Wall Street, where we had strike debt, and that was literally our tactic, a year before, where we had a whole 501c3 nonprofit that people could donate to that would buy up this debt for pennies on the dollar and forgive it. And it wasn't this was well known and well reported on, and John Oliver easily could have given credit to the movement that actually did this. Instead, what he did was he copied what we'd done, took the credit for himself, and left it as kind of oh, here's a nice thing pointing out a problem that doesn't do it. And, I can't know because I don't know what's going on in his head or the head of his writers or anything. But again, this is part of a pattern where you have these entertainers who really they act like they care. They act like they are part of the solution to all of these huge problems that society is facing. But at the end of the day, all they care about are themselves. And this, honestly, this isn't just, Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah and John Oliver. This is three major examples. But you will see this if you ever have movement experience, if you ever get involved with street protesting, if you ever get involved with any kind of political action group, you will see this happen again and again and again at all levels. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's very important that we as activists don't get hoodwinked by personalities who look to use the movements for their own gain and to serve their own ego. And I think a really good way of telling who is, because, you know, the thing is, it's not just like, heck, I do commentary, you know, I paid my dues. I paid my dues by getting my ass kicked in the street for several years, literally and figuratively, you know, but I have skin in the game. And there's so many other people that have skin in the game. And this is the thing that I think a lot of folks who have not been involved in street protesting, who have not been involved in these movements, don't seem to understand. Because you can tell kind of very quickly when you're talking to someone who says that they're on the left, you know, or that they're involved in radical politics, when it's just a counterculture person. And a big part of it is that they don't actually have skin in the game. They don't put their money where their mouth is, and they don't show up when you need it. Because really, like, that's one of the major lessons of Occupy. Like, if there was one thing that I could pass on to, like, all of you guys from my time at Occupy, I would really say that it's this. Sort of the curse of the left is the purity spiral, where people will break off into this group and this smaller group, and they'll fight each other until, you know, until the left is reduced to nothing but a room filled with white men screaming white privilege at each other in a circle. I'm kidding you not. Or it will devolve into a support group. But ultimately, like, what you really need to realize is that the people that you really want to be listening to, and that the people that are your friends, are the ones who won't just talk the talk, but will show up and will walk the walk and will stand with you against a line of riot cops, who will be counted on to show up and support other people that they don't even necessarily agree with, but still are there in solidarity. Because very, very quickly at Occupy, you know, I found that there were other anarchists, and maybe they actually believed they were anarchists, but they were never down for anything more than occasionally showing up on, like, the big marches to get some selfies, you know, and that there were people who I had very strong ideological disagreements with, who, regardless of those ideological disagreements, would be there at the drop of a hat, because they really cared about this. And even if we had different ideas, well, guess what? We can still work together to build a saner and more compassionate world. Another world is possible. So I just wanted to do that and draw attention to what's going on with American Johnson, because it's really messed up. And, you know, he's got a much bigger channel than mine, so I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, but just one more voice oftentimes will help. And just to let people, like, I still watch John Oliver, despite the fact that that annoyed me. And the other stuff that he's done, for the most part, I've been fine with. I've heard there's some, like, I think his Venezuela segment might have been a little State Department-y. But, like, again, there is a place for the kind of activism and the kind of stuff that he does. But you just have to remember, when you're talking to somebody, you got to remember, am I talking to a comrade or am I talking to an entertainer? And if it's an entertainer, that's fine, because sometimes entertainers say some really important things, and not everybody is going to be getting into the street, you know, and doing things all the time. But, you know, really what you got to realize is that when push comes to shove, a lot of people you thought were your friends will betray you, 100%. And people that you thought maybe were a little sketchy or a little different than you will be there for you. I guarantee you. So as this whole country, you know, careens into the rest of 2020, I just kind of wanted to keep that message out there, and I wanted to support another anarchist creator, you know, and hopefully he'll win this fight with Trevor Noah. If he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, because Trevor Noah has millions of dollars, and, you know, he's a YouTuber. But, you know, stranger things have happened. It is 2020. So again, what I think is really important is just, as you do this, as you look for the way to best, whether you really want to be an activist or not, as you look for the sort of best way forward, just remember to be compassionate and to be critical, and to realize that ideology is not as huge of a bridge as you would think it is. I would rather a true enemy than a fake friend any day. And I think what's more important than surrounding yourself with like-minded people is surrounding yourself with people of integrity who can be counted on. So keep that in mind going forward, and please do keep an eye on American Johnson and his channel. Like I said, this really sucks that he's going through this. Like the strike against his channel was ridiculous and really messed with his ability to stream. So go in there, send him a super chat to make up for the lost revenue if you can, or donate to his Patreon, and just make sure to continue to be critical. And I will see you guys on the flip side. Thanks. This is Brenton Lengel, signing off.